So hi, good afternoon. All good? I'm good. So uh, as I can see that last class we only talked about that the five rulers from the Gupta period: Chandragupta first, Samudragupta, Kumargupta, and Chandragupta second, Kumargupta, and Skandagupta. So now we'll go into the other details associated with the Gupta period. Basically, on their polity, administration, socio-religious aspect, and economy. So, chalo, so let's start with the, just give me 1 minute. So let's start with the administration of the Guptas. और एक काम करो, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के पहले इकोनॉमी से स्टार्ट करते हैं. इकोनॉमी ड्यूरिंग गुप्ता पीरियड. So when it comes to economy during Gupta age, so listen, that there used to be a number of the taxes in ancient times also, and even the bonded labor was also practiced, forced labor, and that is also called as usuri. So usuri was also practiced, but as far as the taxes are concerned, most important tax was the land tax. Okay? And generally this land tax was fixed at 1/6 of the produce. So 1/6 of the produce. Moreover, that this is a very nominal rate. Apart from it, this 1/6, it can increase also, it can decrease also if there is any situation of the external war or aggression, so it will increase. But then if there is any that issue like famine or basically drought or flood is there, so then it decreases also. So it was a very practical regime of the taxation in those times. Then as we mentioned, that bonded labor also existed. Apart from it, the Gupta economy was flourishing because of the two major industries. Not only the metallurgy was highly practiced, but apart from it, silk industry was highly developed, and so as the textile industry. So cotton and silk industry heavily developed. Then agricultural commodities were also there, but then it is the silk of the Guptas which was very popular in the Roman world, and they accrued a huge amount of gold with the Roman world by selling the silk. And the silk, the trade was happening with the Silk Route. So you remember that Silk Route we did mention at the time of the Kushanas also. Kanishk, who was using the route to trade with the China and also to trade with the European part of the world. Then, so that's why, and why it was called as a Silk Route. कभी इसको नाम पे ध्यान देना, that it's just because of the major commodity was the silk. Then, so cotton used to be the first commodity which came to the limelight in the history of the humanity, but silk became one of the most sought after commodity. Then, moreover, we see that many clusters of the silk in India. In the modern times, there are many clusters, and particularly the clusters are in southern India, Kanchipuram, Mysore. Then, so a unique aspect is that the production of the silk, as far as south is concerned, so production of the silk happens near Mysore. Okay? And then the production happens near Mysore, but the best of the sarees are created in the Kanchipuram. Okay? So that is one aspect. Then similarly, the production of the silk also happens in Assam, then where some of the finest quality of the silk are there. Eri, Muga. Okay? So Muga is one of the finest quality. Then apart from it, one of the cluster of the silk is the Banaras. Then, and Banaras tradition all started from the Gupta period. So many of the ladies and many of you must be knowing Banarsi silk sari. Okay? So there is no replacement of the Banarsi silk sari. Then, and in fact it has become a part of the rituals inside the Indian marriages. So it all can be traced back to the time of the Guptas. So now why we are overemphasizing on this particular part? In the beginning, with the sale of the silk, they got huge amount of wealth, but in the later times, the sale of the silk, basically after the Skandagupta's time, sale of the silk declined. Then, and how it declined? So there was one conspiracy by the Chinese people itself. Then, so Chinese at this point of time, since Roman world was the one which was demanding the silk, so Chinese, what they did, that they made an agreement with the Roman world that they will be supplying, okay, raw silk material to the Roman world, and in return what they will be doing, that they will be teaching them how to weave the silk. Then so weaving and everything will happen in the Roman world, and raw material will be supplied by China. Then and that's how it will be cheaper for the Roman world, and Roman people will not have to buy from the Guptas. So that was one major point of decline. So Chinese intervention led to the decreasing income of the Guptas. Then it might be seem interesting to you that we are preoccupied with the thought that these things happen only in the modern world. No, it is from time immemorial. So that is one thing. Moreover, because of this particular thing, there was a compulsion on the part of the Guptas. Earlier, they used to give the land grants only to the Brahmins, okay? And that land grant which was given to the Brahmins was called as Brahmadeya. But then, now it was a compulsion of the Guptas that since their income has declined after 470s, so they started to give land grants to their officers also as a payment. And this is actually the true beginning of the feudalism in India. So mention a little bit. Though there were many type of taxes, during Gupta age, but the most important was land tax. Full stop. Then you write, in normal times, it was 1/6 of the produce. Of the produce. But in emergency situations, it can either increase or decrease. Depending on the context. Then mention cotton and silk textile industry. Was highly developed at this point of time. Full stop. Banaras to Maheshwar. Were the important. Banaras to Maheshwar, you know where? Madhya Pradesh. Okay. Actually, we have talked about, I don't know, culture to nahi hua. You must have heard about Omkareshwar. It's one of the Shiva Jyotirling. So river ke ek side pe Omkareshwar, on the other side Maheshwar. And what is most famous from Maheshwar? Maheshwari sari. Okay. So it's a mix of the cotton and silk. So mix of cotton and silk, and very popular variety. So these all development that happened at this point of time. So Banaras to Maheshwar. Then you write, Guptas also released. Maheshwar, important textile clusters. लिख लिया ना इतना तो I think. एक बार पढ़ो, last line क्या था? रुको, मुझे पढ़ने दो. So Banaras to Maheshwar were the important textile clusters at this time. Full stop. Then you write, Guptas also released huge quantity of the gold coins. But they were not purest of the pure. Then mention there was huge demand of silk textile. There was huge demand of silk textile from the Roman world. Which led to huge accumulation of gold, with the Guptas. Full stop. In the second decade of the 5th century, Romans started to prefer the raw material of silk from China. It led to decline of trade with Guptas. Then फिर पैराग्राफ चेंज करो and then mention. Earlier Gupta rulers granted lands to the priestly class for their religious services. Then these lands were known as Brahmadeya. Then mention. In the later times, Gupta rulers started the practice of granting land to their officers also. Then mention as a salary to their officers also, as a salary, which led to consolidation of feudalism. In the north and central India. So this is the economic aspect. Let's move to the administration of the Guptas. Okay? So administration of the Guptas. So now listen. When it comes to administration, a question is basically that whose administration was more centralized, Guptas or Mauryas? Mauryas were more centralized, but then now understand. So Gupta administration as compared to Maurya, it was not that centralized, but in the beginning central authority was there, profound central authority, and this continued till the time of the Skandagupta. Okay? So starting from the Chandragupta first till the Skandagupta, that a centralized nature was there in the Gupta administration. But after the death of the Skandagupta, decentralization started to happen. Then, meaning that Gupta rulers, they gave semi-autonomy to many of their officers. ये land grant जो भी बात किया ना, so this is the measure that semi-autonomy they are granting to their officers or important ministers. Moreover, as far as the divisions in the administration are concerned, so सबसे पहले ऊपर तो we will write that it is a Gupta Empire, but then Gupta Empire was subdivided into many such units. So very first is what we call that Vishay, Vithi and Gram. Vishay, Vithi and Gram. So these were the divisions. Then abhi likho nahi, I'll dictate this part. So as you know that Gupta Empire, that it must be headed by the Gupta king, but then after subdivisions are there, and in all the subdivisions there used to be some officers then, and they were given proper autonomy and proper power to enact in that particular area. So pehle jo whatever discussion we did, that you write, and then we'll go into the this sub classification. So mention that though the Gupta administration was not highly centralized like Mauryas, but the centrality of the administration was intact. Centrality of the administration was intact till the rule of Skandagupta. Then mention in the second half of the 5th century. Decentralization of Gupta administration started. Full stop. The weak Gupta rulers, it's from second decade wala part. Okay? So weak Gupta rulers of this period granted autonomy to many of their important feudatories. So I'm just mentioning some of the name of their feudatories then, and these feudatories, they went on to create their own kingdoms after the decline of the Guptas. Okay? So mention, for example, Yashodharman of Malwa, Mokharis of Kannauj, and Maitrakas of Saurashtra. You can see the spelling. Let me complete first. Maitrakas of Saurashtra. Then a paragraph change karo. Then in paragraph you write, next paragraph you write, following administrative divisions were created during Gupta rule. So the very first one which I'm mentioning is the Bhukti. Okay? Then comes Vishay. After Vishay, Vithi. And Vithi ke baad Gram. So Bhukti is equivalent to So this is province. Then Vishay is districts. Vithi is sub districts और block भी बोल सकते हो. In the modern language or modern connotation, it is similar to blocks. And gram, as you know, it is village. Then the officers who headed these divisions. So what I'm doing, I'm writing on the second side officers. So Bhukti was headed by Bhuktipati. It's very easy in Gupta period to remember who were the officers. Vishay by Vishaypati. But then Bhuktipati, many a times he is also referred as Uparika. Then Vithi by Vithipati. And Gram was headed by Gramika. Done? So this is the administrative division. एक इसमें एक और लिख लो. Mention the Chief Justice was known as Mahadand Nayak. Chief Justice was known as Mahadand Nayak. And he was appointed at provincial level. Now, one more thing you understand. There is one note I'm mentioning, and just be careful about it. What we have written, VT. But then there is one more term which was popular at this point of time, and that was Visti. Did we mention Visti in the Maurya? Kiya tha na? Did I mention? I'm just asking. What was this? Forced labor. So Maurya period, this forced labor started. It continued in the Guptas also. Okay? So Visti. And देखो forced labor में एक और चीज है. Let's suppose that someone who is a forced labor or bonded labor, what if the person's death happened? So कर्ज माफ नहीं होता है in bonded labor. His family will have to serve. That is what is the bonded labor. Okay? So Visti was also practiced during the Gupta age. So note करके लिख लो, Visti or bonded labor was also practiced during this time. Then, so we are done with the polity, administration and economy. Let's go into the interesting aspect, or not just interesting but very elaborate part of the Guptas, their society. Okay? So let's come to that part. So लिखो society during Gupta period. So there are a number of the discussions that we are going to have in this particular part. So let's talk about that the things which have happened in the post Maurya period. वहां पे हमने कुछ भी नहीं लिखा था, ठीक है? So basically why I left it, because that both the discussion would be incorporated over here. So actually what has happened, that till the Maurya period, the things were bit better as far as the scenario of the women and the backwards is concerned. In fact, Maurya society was unorthodox society. Hardly they discriminated people on the basis of the caste. Then caste was there, but then there was no such big discrimination on the basis of the caste. But then the position of the women and the backwards started to deteriorate soon after the demise of the Maurya. The reason is that n number of the dynasties are emerging and n number of the invaders are also coming to India. So there was a chaos in the Indian society, and you know, in the chaos situation, the people who are highly mistreated are the backwards and the women. Okay? So backward in the women. And moreover, what happened? So women position started to deteriorate, and so as the Shudra position also started to deteriorate. Then, so what was the situation? Okay? First of all, let's talk about the women's situation. So as far as the situation of the women in between 190 BC to 200 AD, it was not very good. And women were not allowed to listen to the Shastras. What is Shastras? Epics, Puranas. Then they were not allowed to even kind of that read those Shastras. And then moreover, at a particular juncture or at a particular period, as you know, that the monthly cycles, then so women were not allowed to worship and do all the other stuff. So these all phenomena developed in the post-Maurya age. Then now what happened, that when Gupta rulers have come to power, so they are regarded as a ruler who better preferred accommodation, tolerance, and then upliftment in the society. In fact, later on, when we read about the Buddhism and Jainism and we talk about the popularity of the Buddhism, okay? So there we also talk about that it is the Gupta rulers who belonged to the Vaishya community. They tried to revive Hinduism by over-emphasizing on the concept of the bhakti than animal sacrifice, which was prevalent at the time of the Vedic age. So they tried to simplify the Hindu religion. But then, no matter whatever they tried, they were not able to uplift the position of women in a greater way. So understand what happened. So first thing, what they did, that as far as the women's scenario is concerned, so in the post-Maurya age, widow remarriage was refrained. But Guptas, they preferred or they promoted that widow marriage can happen. Okay? That is one thing. Then apart from it, widow remarriage ke alawa, when it comes to the different type of the marriages which existed at this point of time. Achha, I think, did we mention that Anulom and Pratilom Viva? Okay? So Anulom and Pratilom Viva, so at this point of time, that though these kind of marriages are not in the prevalence, but they preferred that marriage must happen in the same community. Another thing is that same community, but agar jo what is that? Anulom Viva happens. So once again here, it was not a big issue at this point of time. I'll give you one example. You have already written one example. So for example, Chandragupta II's daughter, what was the name? Prabhavati. She was married to Rudra Sen. Guptas were trader class, Vaishyas. And who were the Vakatakas? Brahmins. Okay? So what kind of Vivah this is? Anulom or Pratilom? Pratilom. Anulom. Okay? So it is Anulom, in which the girl is going into a higher caste. Then that was accepted. But girl cannot go into the lower caste. So this was accepted. Even polygamy was also there. So polygamy, कैसे कोई example बताओगे मुझे? Polygamy. The Chandragupta himself, he was already married to that Kuber Naga. He was already having a wife, and then he got married to Dhruva Swamini also. Okay? So polygamy was also practiced in the society. So this is one aspect. Then political rights were not there with the women at this point of time. So as the economic rights were just limited. And there is one, but we'll discuss later. So economic rights were not very full-fledged. Then, moreover, Guptas also maintained that women must be given access to listen to the epics and the Puranas. So now that they can listen, read and write abhi available nahi hai. Okay? So they can listen to the epics and Puranas. Another thing, that when it comes to the upper caste women and the lower caste women, who had the more freedom? Lower caste women. So lower caste women had more freedom. Now what happened? So in the post-Maurya age, dhyan se samajhna, in the post-Maurya age, there was one phenomenon which was rising, and what was that? Institution of the prostitution. Okay? So institution of the prostitution was rising from the post-Maurya age, and there were many external influences in the rise of this institution. Then what happened? So objectification of the women also started, stereotyping of the women also started. So just to safeguard the dignity of the upper class women, particularly the Gupta women or the royal class women, many such impositions were placed on the upper caste women. So very first thing that they did, though they are trying to uplift, but then they don't know that what will be the repercussions of it. So many such that acronyms were given to the girls. Then, so for example, this is the time that girls got compared with the goddess Lakshmi, goddess Parvati, Saraswati. So Beti was considered as the Swaroop of the Devi. Then, so now the question is that when a Beti or daughter is equated with a Devi, so she will have to behave like a Devi. You getting it? Okay? So it means that her freedom would be curbed. Then, so her freedom would be curbed. So earlier she was free to go anywhere. Okay? So she was free to see anybody, free to talk anybody. But now she will always be under protection. Then, so she will not talk to anyone. Then, unnecessarily, she will not go alone. जब भी बाजार जाना होगा 4-6 लोगों के साथ जाएंगे. So the freedom of the ladies were curbed, and so as upper caste women were not allowed to seek an independent source of living. Then they were since they were belonging to the upper caste, so the notion developed कि इन्हें पैसे की क्या जरूरत है जब पति कमा ही रहा है तो. So they were dependent on their parents and their spouses. But then same was not true for the lower caste women. Lower caste women were allowed to have an independent source of living. So they can do the work, they can seek that salary, and then after they can be in a better freedom. So this was one major difference between the two. Moreover, there are some ups and downs also. Okay? Not everything is bad, but not everything is good also at this point of time. So another thing which is Sati Pratha. Then, so we get to know about the first instance of the Sati Pratha from the Gupta period and recorded instance of the Sati Pratha. Then, but then this Sati Pratha was not there in the beginning of the Gupta rule. So basically, when Chandragupta first is there, Samudragupta, Kumaragupta, Chandragupta second. So this is the time when Sati Pratha was not there. But it is said that after 450s, Sati became a practice in the Gupta regime. And the first recorded evidence of the Sati has been found from the Iran inscription, and that inscription was written in 510. So this inscription is in which state? Madhya Pradesh. Then, so that gives the detail about that. Some of the Gupta queens who have also committed this sati suicide with their husbands. Then, so that is one part. But then there is a one good aspect also. So there was one famous lawgiver or person who used to write or who was writing the laws of that time. His name was Katyayan. Then, in fact, in the those who have studied law, they must have heard about the name of the Katyayan. Then, so Katyayan, he was codifying the codes of that time, and then he further elaborated the concept of the Stridhan. So what is Stridhan? Any idea? Have you heard about it? हाँ बताओ. ठीक है, मतलब you're closer to it. हाँ. And you were saying something? ठीक है. So dowry नया term है. We will use, because in the ancient time dowry actually स्त्रीधन से ही dowry आया आगे के time पे. It is immovable property which is given to the, ठीक है, the girl. Then so basically the jewelry, then so jewelry and then money and whatever that has been given. So the gifts, as you too rightly said, that gifts which are given to the girl at the time of the marriage. So Katyayan said, he wrote in the laws of that time that this belongs only to the girl. It is not a dowry prize which is meant for that family of the marriage, and only the girl has the right to sell it and mortgage it, not her husband, not her mother-in-law, not her father-in-law. So only she has the right to sell it and mortgage it, and she will keep it for her maintenance. Then so mortgaging, I hope you understand that girvi rakhna ya bech dena. Then so this is what he has mentioned about it. So write about it, and then we'll go into the Shudra situation also. So society में लिखो, society में start करो that Gupta society was patriarchal in nature. Gupta society was patriarchal in nature. And by the time of their arrival, or by the time of their rule, by the time of their rule, by the time of their rule, already deterioration happened in the position of women and backwards. Full stop. In the post-Maurya age, stereotyping and objectification of women increased. Moreover, there was a rise in the institution of prostitution. Full stop. In the post-Maurya age, the political rights were denied to the women. And they were not allowed to read, write, or listen. To the Vedic scriptures. Then paragraph change, and then you mention. Guptas initiated the reformation of religion and society. Guptas initiated the reformation of religion in society. Then mention. They allowed widow remarriage. And women were further allowed to listen. To the Vedic scriptures. Then mention after it. Though the differences existed between the status of upper caste and lower caste women. Then mention further. Upper caste and lower caste women, full stop. Upper caste women were not allowed to seek an independent source of living. And they were dependent on their parents or spouses. Husbands भी लिख सकते हो, spouses नहीं लिखना हो तो, or their husbands, full stop. Then mention. On the other hand, lower caste women, lower caste women were allowed to seek independent source of living, then to uplift the position of women, position and image, दोनों लिखना, to uplift the position and image of the women, they were often compared with form of goddess. Then mention Katyayana, paragraph change करके लिखना, Katyayana, who was the famous law giver of this time. Further explained Sri Dhan. Mention, it is the valuables or the gifts. And the gifts given to the girl. It is the valuable or the gifts given to the girls at the time of their marriage. Full stop. He further added that it is not a dowry price, and only the girl has the right. It is not the dowry price, and only the girl has the right to sell it and mortgage it. And then फिर से वापस से पैराग्राफ चेंज करो एंड लिखो, मेंशन, in the rear end of the Gupta rule, the practice of sati also started. I hope you all know what is sati. ठीक है ना? तो आगे लिखो, the first recorded evidence और archaeological भी लिखो, ठीक है? recorded or archaeological evidence of sati has been found from Iran inscription of Madhya Pradesh. Dated around 510 AD. Done. So this is about the women scenario. Now let's come to the backwards, or basically the untouchables. Done. So once again we will talk about the post-Maurya age. Then, so in the post-Maurya age, those 300 to 350 years were actually proving to be highly deteriorating in the Indian societal scenario. So there was rise of one very different category of the untouchables who were known as Chandal, and the number of the Chandals have increased in leaps and bounds during the Gupta period. So we'll go to the Chandals, but how this has happened. So remember that in the Vedic times we talked about Shudra. Okay? Shudra was not untouchable in the Varna system. But then in the later period, when the Mahajanpad history started, slowly people make Shudra as a untouchable. And actually it was a kind of a clear crystal division of the labor. Then whereby that people in the ruling class, people in the upper class, they will not be touching the human excreta or the cleaning the dirt. And then if the Shudra is the lowest in the Varna, so they can be attributed this job of the cleaning the excreta and the cleaning the roads and the dirt and everything. So the conscious creation of the untouchability happened in the Indian society. Now, in the post-Maurya period, there were two types of the untouchable, and actually it is all related to the division of labor only. Untouchability is the product of the division of labor and nothing else. Then, so I think some of the instances I have mentioned in the modern classes also. Do you remember? At the time of the partition of India, Muhammad Ali Jinnah's statement. Have I mentioned in the class that he was giving a secular speech? Remember? Take it. So he was giving a secular speech. I'll tell you, in two batches it is not there. So basically Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who actually got the new nation on the basis of the demand, on the basis of the religion. And then after what happened, on the eve of the Pakistan's independence, he was giving a secular speech whereby he's saying that he's actually inviting, then saying the Hindus of the Pakistan, they must stay in the Pakistan. The Christians of the Pakistan must stay in the Pakistan. It will be a new nation. It will be the nation of the hope. It will be the nation of the career growth. They don't need to go to any other place. Then, so just like in India also, there was an appeal from the Indian leaders that Muslims of India, they must not go to the Pakistan. They must remain. It is equally their land. So Jinnah was also replicating the same sort of speech. So then it happened that one of his journalist friend, okay, that they were taking his interviews. And then they asked that all your life, okay, meanwhile that from the time then when you return from the Britain and then you indulge in the Indian politics. So what you demanded is that a nation for the Muslims, okay? So a nation for the Muslims, and now you are saying that other communities must also stay in this land and then it will be a secular land. So what is behind it? So he said that if all these people will go to India, so who will clean our excreta? So this is what was Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Now understand. So what is this? Division of labor. ठीक है? हम नहीं clean करेंगे, कोई और करेगा. और कौन करेगा? ये लोग करेंगे. So now understand. So here also, this is also that it's not at all that when we look in deeper into it, it's not the religion which says it, it's actually the human construct. So there were two types of the Shudra which emerged in the post-Maurya age. Anirvasit and Nirvasit Sudra. Then, so Anirvasit and Nirvasit Sudra. Then, moreover, that what is this? Anirvasit Sudra. So, हिंदी में वर्ड है अनिर्वास, मतलब बाहर नहीं निकालना, and निर्वास का मतलब बाहर निकालना. So now understand. So there was a categorization which was made in the Shudras, that those Shudras who were allowed to live inside the village or the towns, okay? So live inside the village or towns, they were called as Anirvashit. And those who were not allowed to live inside the village or town, they were called as Nirvasit. So why so? ऐसा क्यों किया? So basically, those Shudras, okay, who will be a domestic help, then that domestic help मतलब कि रोज घर घर के काम, so घर में झाड़ू लगाना, ठीक है, then बर्तन साफ करना, cleaning the utensils, then and then also maintaining the stuff in the house, ठीक है. So all those things which are inside the house. So for that, there would be one Shudra which will be living inside the villages, and the other Shudra which will be cleaning the excreta, okay, which will be cleaning the roads, which will be cleaning, doing the most dirty work, manual scavenging. They will be living outside the village or town. Are you getting it? Then, so they were not allowed to live inside the village or town. They were living on the peripheries of the village or town, and mostly they were living in the Shamshan Ghat. Then, so Shamshan Ghat. Even irony is that in the many pockets of India, that still, that though the things are changing, obviously constitution has brought a lot of change, but still there are in many pockets of India where the Harijan bastis are different, far from the original bastis. That's not right. Then So this is all going from these all traditions only. So there was this particular scenario in the post-Maurya age. So Anirvasit living inside village and Nirvasit living outside the village. Now, so Chandalas were the one who were the Nirvasit Shudras. Okay? And they started to emerge in large numbers in the later part of the post-Maurya age and in the beginning rule of the Gupta age. So Fahian has clearly mentioned about their rising presence. And now why they were called as Chandalas? Because they are living very closer to the dead bodies. Okay? They are the one who are living the graveyards. And they are the one who in modern times, it's not a derogatory thing which is from my side, but what you use in the society, I'm using at this point of time. You call the dome. Have you heard about it? Okay. So they were referred as the Chandalas because they are living in the graveyards and they perform the last rite rituals. In fact, they will be taking everything which is there on the dead body. Then, since nothing is available to them and they are indulging in the any kind of food behavior. So any animal they can eat, any flesh they can eat. So this is what was called as the Chandalas. Then, so their number started to rise in the large number. So what is the reason behind that? Why their number is rising? The reason is that since their concentration is increasing in the graveyards, it means that discrimination in the society has increased. Discrimination in the society has increased, and so as the rights, the human rights are not equally available to them, and that's how their numbers are increasing in the peripheries. So mention, you write that in the post-Maurya age, two type of Shudras emerged. Mention. So पहला लिखो अनिर्वासित शूद्र. Anirvasit Sudra. And in this you write, they were allowed to live inside the villages or towns. And they performed household chores. Then mention. Second, you write Nirvasit Sudra. And in this you mention, they were not allowed to live inside the village or town. But they were supposed to live on the peripheries of the habitation. They were supposed to live on the peripheries of the habitation. Then mention after it peripheries of habitation. In the Gupta age, a particular category of Nirvasit Sudra, known as Chandalas, started to emerge in large numbers. Full stop. Their concentration was mainly in graveyards. And they had animalistic beliefs and food behavior. Animalistic belief and food behavior. Animalistic belief and food behavior. Full stop. Several disabilities were imposed on them. Several disabilities were imposed on them by the rulers of those times. By the rulers of those times. So now understand that what is disability that I'm trying to mention. Then, so I think in RB5 I have mentioned a little bit of some disabilities when we have had a discussion on Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Then, so now listen, what are these disabilities? That whenever these people are going to enter into the village or town, so they had to do something. So for example, that at the heart of the caste system, or at the heart of the Indian societal system, or caste basically, is the concept of the purity and pollution. Okay? So there are certain classes which are considered as pure, and there were certain classes which were considered as pollution. Okay? So basically the Shudras or these Chandalas whom we are discussing, they are pollution. Okay? It's a newer concept of the pollution in the ancient ages. आज के टाइम पे भले PM 2.5 हो या PM 10 हो, but those were the time people themselves were pollution. But then now, but आज के टाइम पे भी people are responsible for pollution. So now, so they were considered as pollution, and moreover, so-called pure people who are living inside the villages and town, they considered that if they see the face of these kind of people, so their day would be off. Then that kuch ashubh ho jayega. So for that purpose only, whenever the Shudras, these Sudras, they are entering into the village or town, so they will have to beat a particular kind of drum, not the different kind of drum. Ek unique hota tha, okay? So a different kind of drum, or they will be blowing some sort of horn. So why so? Because listening to that particular kind of sound, the pure people, now they get the message, then the pollution is coming, let's get inside, okay? So mask nahi tha us time pe. So let's get inside, let's put on our that air purifiers then. So they are going inside. But the question is that why these people are entering into the village and town? जब बाहर ही निकाल रखा है तो अंदर क्यों लाना? ठीक है? So who will clean the excreta? Who will clean the roads? Who will clean the drains? Then, so these all safai karmachari will be coming. Okay? Then, apart from it, when they are gone, so they can move out. Moreover, the second disability which was there at this point of time is that these people, okay, they will not be entering in the villages in the early morning, and they will not be there in the villages in the late evening. Why so? Because in the early morning when sun is on the horizon, and late evening also sun is on the horizon, so then what will happen? The shadows are very long, and their shadows even considered as a pollution. किसी के ऊपर पल गया तो उसको गंगा स्नान करना पड़ेगा, ठीक है? So that is also new concept of pollution. Then apart from it, in some of the areas, even the provision was that they will have to carry a pitcher in their neck and then a broom on their back. Why so? Even their footprints were considered as pollution. So आगे से चलेंगे, पीछे से झाड़ू लगता रहेगा, ठीक है? So स्वच्छ भारत अभियान इन्होंने start किया था. Then another thing, that the pot which was hanging in their neck, then it was meant that even their spit was considered as a pollution. So they will not be spitting on the road, and they will be spitting inside that particular pot. So basically they are more hygienic. Okay? If they would have been in the today's age, COVID would not have spread. Obviously. So anyways, so this kind of disabilities were imposed on them. And it is just one talk of the Gupta period, that, but Guptas are not purely responsible for it. The entire ongoings from the Mahajanpad age is responsible for it. Then, moreover, I think in one of the class I have shared about the Nangeli also. Have I shared the story from Kerala? Okay? So such was the discrimination with the people of this community, or basically people who were treated as untouchable, that is historical. Then, so the Kerala case is very popular. In Kerala, there used to be one of the highly extreme discriminatory text, which is known as the breast tax. Okay? So the people or the women from the untouchable community, if they want to cover their breast, so then they will have to pay the tax. Then, so there was this one girl, her name was Nangeli, and then she was covering her breast. And then when she was asked about this particular tax, so she said that I don't have anything. So they said that you have something, you give. So what she did, that rather than uncovering the breast, she cut both her breast. So this is one example which is often given. So if you look at the history, so the discrimination has been very high, and it's just not, I'm not giving any preach to you, but then the reality is that in this exam you will have to be that pro Sudra class, pro untouchable class, have a sympathetic, empathetic feeling, and then moreover that when it comes to the concept of reservation, बहुत लोगों को बुरा भी लगता है, अच्छा भी लगता है, ठीक है? So when it comes to the concept of reservation, which is considered as the positive discrimination, it was quintessential, it was necessary. The only flaw or the major flaw with the system, that it has not been executed properly. And then n number of the people who have got the benefit, they are getting the benefit time and again. But basically those people who must get the benefit, they are left in the process. So the concept is not wrong. The execution of the concept is wrong, and politicization of that concept is wrong. So you need to be very well versed on these concepts. And whenever it comes to exam, so please know where, ठीक है? बाकी personal view जो भी हो, but in exam you need to be pro poor and pro untouchables. Done? So let's come to this part. So several disabilities were imposed on them, and this was increasing day by day, and it further got deteriorated by the arrival of the medieval ages. So mention, कुछ लिखा है इसमें? What's the last one? नहीं, पूरा लाइन पढ़ो. नहीं, beginning से. So Chandals we have mentioned. Several disabilities were imposed on them. Got it. So right, for example, whenever they were entering, into villages or towns, they needed to blow a horn or drum, beat a drum, blow a horn or beat a drum. Beat a drum, full stop. Moreover, they were not allowed to enter inside the villages, during early morning or late evening. Done? So this is what is about this particular part. So society, we have seen enough in the society, and then let's move on to the last one, that is the religious practices of this time. So religion during Gupta period. Religion during Gupta age. So now listen. So as far as the Hinduism is concerned, it's a golden age for the Hinduism. Okay? And moreover, let's talk a little bit more about the Fahayan. So Fahayan, when he came to India, he came with the expectation. He had a view of the India that a Buddhist country which will be aplenty with the Buddhist monastery, air would be everywhere, would be the Buddhist monks and the Buddhist robes would be there. But then, to his surprise, what he found in India, he found temple run in India instead of the creation of the monasteries and also the Buddhist things. There was temple construction in India. So this is a new thing that he has noticed. But apart from it, what else he has seen? Though he found that there is altogether a different religious fervor in India, but at the same point of time, he has noted down the tolerance and accommodation towards the old religions of the Jainism and Buddhism. Then, so meaning that the development of the Hinduism is happening, but not the execution of the Buddhist. That was the case in the post-Maurya age. Whenever some rulers who were there, they wanted the propagation of their own religion, so they did the execution of the others. For example, in the Sunga period, it happened then, but that was not the case in the Gupta period. In fact, itself you have written, Samudragupta, who was a devout Hindu, then who performed Ashwamedha Yajna also, but he was very accommodative to the Sri Lankan ruler Meghavarman. Then, so that is one thing he has noted down. As far as the Hinduism is concerned, so it is considered as the institutionalization of the Hinduism. How the institutionalization happened? So not only the temple construction started, which led to the institutionalization, but majority of the Hindu religious literature were compiled at this point of time. In language and literature of the art and culture, we'll be studying about the two traditions, of the main tradition, literary tradition of India, which is called as Shruti tradition of India. What is Shruti? The literature of India existed in the oral form, not in the written form. Then, so as far as the Ved, epics, and the Mahabharata, Ramayana and Mahabharata, these all are concerned, they all existed in the oral literature. They were not a written literature. So it all existed in the oral form. And now at this point of time, the compilation of this oral literature started, meaning that now they were written down. So the vehicle of writing down or vehicle of writing any oral literature or maintaining a record of the oral literature, what it needs? Script. And what was the script which was chosen for this time, at this point of time? Devanagari. Okay? So basically the development of the Devanagari happened during the Guptas only. Initially it was called as a Gupta script, but it started to be called as a Nagari script. The reason that why it was called as Nagari, because it developed in the Nagar of the Gupta. Nagar samajh rahe ho? Cities of the Gupta. So it came to be known as Nagari. And later on it came to be known as Devanagari. Why so? Because all the Daviya literature was written in the Nagari. And what is Daviya literature? Religious literature of the Hinduism was written in Devanagari. So it came to be known as Devanagari. So Devanagari was used as a medium of writing. So what all religious literature were written? Bhagavad Gita was separately compiled from the Mahabharata, and then apart from it, all the major Puranas were written down at this point of time. So as far as the Puranas are concerned, you'll be reading in language and literature that they are one of the very important vehicle of the propagation of the Hinduism. So they all were written down, and it further led to the consolidation of the Hinduism. Now another thing, that by the time of the Guptas, already the concept of the Tridev is formalized. Okay? That Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, they are considered as one is creator, another is the preserver, and third is the destroyer. Then, so this concept was already there. But then from this point of time, the consorts of the Sakti, it also developed. And what is consorts of the Sakti? Three forms of Durga. Then, and what are those? Parvati, Saraswati, and Lakshmi. Okay? So these Tridevi concept also developed from this point of time. So mention, you write. Gupta age is regarded as one of the most important phase in the institutionalization of Hindu religion. Institutionalization of Hindu religion. Then not only full stop के बाद लिखो, not only temple construction started at this time, but also majority of the Hindu religious literature were compiled. But also majority of the Hindu religious literature were compiled. For example, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, and all the major Puranas. major Puranas. Done? Then, moreover, in this age, the concept of Three Devi, in this age, the concept of Three Devi was further formalized. Concept of Three Devi was further formalized. The three forms of goddess Durga or Shakti emerged. The three forms of goddess Durga or Shakti emerged. That is, three forms of goddess Durga or Shakti emerged. That is, Parvati, Saraswati and Lakshmi. Then Parvati, Saraswati and Lakshmi. Done? Then paragraph change करके लिखो. Though Guptas favored the development and consolidation of Hinduism, but they were also accommodative. Towards the other religious beliefs, like they were also accommodative towards the other religious beliefs like Buddhism and Jainism. Done? So now, this is a good chunk of the information about the Guptas. So now we are done with the Guptas. Now is the time that we'll have to go to South India. We haven't even taken a single topic from the South India. So by 550, Gupta's demise has happened. Let's come to the Sangam age in the southern India. So अब यहाँ onwards, एक बार ध्यान से सुन लो. There would be jumping. ठीक है? What kind of jumping? Afbau principle. Then, so you know Afbau, here, there, like this way. So north, south. So we'll be going and coming, that going ahead, coming backwards. So let's go to the south. So you write Sangam age in South India. Sangam age in South India. So listen, so Sangam age, अब यहाँ पे there is a bone of contention of information with Tamil Nadu government and so as the central government. And what is this bone of contention? The age itself. ठीक है? Tamil Nadu government, it believes or it says that the expanse was very large, and the central government says that it is little less than what has been claimed by the Tamil Nadu government. Then, so we'll have to take which version, central or Tamil Nadu? Central for this exam. And for the Tamil Nadu exam, you will have to go through with the Tamil version. So now, listen. So basically, from very long time, there is a very famous historian from the southern India. His name is Nilakantha Sastri. Then, so Nilakantha Sastri, according to him, the Sangam age was mainly from the time of the Ashokas, or basically the 3rd century BC. Okay? So 3rd century BC till 600 AD. So it is the timeline which is according to the Nilakantha Sastri, who is a very famous South Indian historian. But then, now in recent past, in last 10 years, many such excavations were done by the Tamil Nadu government, and actually just before the COVID period, there was one excavation which happened at a place called Killadi. And in Killadi, so according to the carbon dating of the Killadi, they say that Sangam age even pre-existed Mauryas. So according to them, it is there from the 6th century BC. So this is the only difference, that 300 साल का difference, बहुत कम साल का difference है, ठीक है? So this is what is there. So now, Why we call it Sangam dynasty or Sangam age? There were three dynasties in this age in the southern India: Chola, Chera, and Pandyas. But Chola we refer as early Chola, and the Cheras and the Pandyas. And these all are the coastal dynasties of the southern India. So they are called as Sangam age dynasty because in this period, Sangam assemblies were held. Then, despite these kingdoms were enemies of each other, but whenever the Sangam assemblies happened, they all participated. And what is a Sangam assembly? So this is the assembly which was related to the compilation of the Tamil literature. Then, so generally we call it as a Sangam literature, but the language was Tamil. So in the modern time, just for increasing the understanding, we call it Tamil literature, but it was actually the Sangam literature, and the language of the Sangam literature was the Tamil. Okay, so that's why it is called as the Sangam age. So one by one we need to see all these three dynasties: the early Chola, the Cheras, and the Pandyas. Then, so just write little bit. Okay, so according to the famous historian, according to the famous historian Neelkanth Sastri, Neelkanth Sastri, the expanse of Sangam age, the expanse of Sangam age was from 300 BC to 600 AD. 300 BC to 600 AD. That in this period, three major dynasties ruled. Three major dynasties ruled in the southern part of India. Three major dynasties ruled in the southern part of India. Then, so now, and एक और line लिख लो, ठीक है? This age is referred as Sangam. This age is referred as Sangam because of compilation of Sangam literature. Because of compilation of Sangam literature written in Tamil language. Sangam literature written in Tamil language. Done? Then, these three dynasties are as follows. These three dynasties are as follows. Uske pehle, to create a map. So, and just have a look at this, that in which all parts of India are these all dynasties. So as far as the Cheras are concerned, so Chera country touching the parts of, so this is the Chera area. Then when it comes to the Pandyas, so Pandyas, and then the Cholas, then so mention which areas. So this is for Cheras, and Cheras are also referred as Kerala Putras. Then Pandyas, and early Chola. चलो I'll do while you're writing capital and their ports also I'm creating in the map itself. ठीक है, बाद में लिख लेंगे but यहाँ पे भी बना लो. So there are important ports also I'm mentioning in this. So let me use a different color. ठीक है. So the port of the Keralites was Musiri. Then the port of the Cholas was, two ports were there, Kaveri Patnam, and also referred as Puhar. Then their ports, Pandya, there are two ports. So this one is called as Korkai, and over here was Thuthikodi. इस ईयर पेपर में था एक्चुअली दिस क्वेश्चन, कोरकई वाज देयर. इजी क्वेश्चन था क्योंकि जनरली सब लोग पढ़ाते हैं. मैं ये थोड़ी बोलूंगा कि मैं ही पढ़ाता हूं. हाँ, ये बोल सकता हूं कि कुछ लोग मुझे देख के पढ़ाते हैं. देख के तो आजकल बहुत लोग पढ़ चुके. कल मुझे बहुत खुशी हुई. यू नो व्हाई? द गवर्नमेंट्स लेजिस्लेशन. हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू आर स्टिल स्वीट 16 के नीचे? ओ, पीछे 2-4 लोग हैं. ठीक है. सो घर जाना पड़ेगा. टिकट में हेल्प करूं? So basically, see, this was very necessary that anybody is becoming teacher. Online platforms पे you just copy paste anybody, ठीक है, just look at it and then बस आगे सामने तो तुम लोग हो नहीं, कैमरा है, कैमरा देख के तो कोई भी पढ़ा सकता है. So this is actually leading to the deterioration in the knowledge quality. And obviously the cheating with the students. Even 5,000 रुपए गए तुम्हारे. But is it कि 5,000 रुपए मुफ्त में मिले थे? Then, so obviously it is all earned, hardly earned. So then it's a very good legislation by the government. I would appreciate it. And moreover, that counselor thing was also very necessary. Have you heard this? You read about it. Then that you see that how many students they commit suicide in the quota. That's very, that it's, one must ponder over it, that it leads to n number of the suicides. Then, so then when the regular counseling would be there, there was not be so much of expectation. And one more thing, that the parents of this time, more than you, the parents of this time has become more ambitious and aspirational. उनका बस चले तो बच्चे को पैदा होते ही IAS घोषित कर दें. अरे कुछ जिंदगी भी होती है, जीना भी होता है. Then, so actually, what happened that people stopped enjoying their college life. I believe that if you have not enjoyed your college life, so you are bereft of one of the best memories of your life. And in fact, तो फिर से कॉलेज में इनरोल कर लो. किसने मना किया है? 3 ही साल था कोविड ना. अब तैयारी के पीछे फंस गए कहीं. अरे पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन में इनरोल कर लो. Go to the campus. Then the campus life is already, it is necessary. ठीक है? That's an unfortunate thing which has happened. But then you must enroll in post graduation courses also. And ये preparation साथ में होती रहेगी. There is no issue with it. So now these are the important ports of these people. ठीक है? अब चलो वापस डिटेल में चलते हैं. So now listen, that as you can see that these all are the coastal dynasties. Then, so coastal dynasties, and moreover they all came to prominence from the 1st century AD. Since these are the coastal dynasty, so there was one strong trait of all the 3 dynasty, that they had a very good naval force. Then, so they had mastery and expertise in the boat building, ship building. Then, so just because of the ship building and boat building, they had far distance trade. So they had trade contacts with the Arab world, Roman world, and so as with the China also. Then, so from the Malay Peninsula area, first they are reaching to the Malay Peninsula, and then already there was a presence of the Chinese traders in the Malay Peninsula. So they had the trade contact in both the directions. Moreover, when we look at this area, okay, so अगर जो थोड़ा distance पे I am creating it, then just give me 1 minute. Then, so here Sri Lanka, Then, and this area in between India and Sri Lanka, what is the name? Park Strait. Okay. And what is unique about the Park Strait? बताओ. Sri Ram Setu is one such thing. Okay. But then I'm Pamban Bridge bhi nahi. It is for the best place, one of the best place in the world for the pearl cultivation. Okay. So one of the best place in the world for pearl cultivation. And moreover, just understand. So for pearl cultivation, what is the requirement? Warm waters. Temperature must be more than 27 degrees Celsius. Then, so ऐसा भी नहीं कि 50 degree Celsius हो, but more than 27 degrees Celsius. And I hope that you must have studied in geography also that 27 degrees Celsius is one of the very important temperature in many of the phenomenons of that planet Earth. What is that? Tropical cyclone. So for tropical cyclone to happen, temperature, if it is lower than the 27 degrees Celsius, it will not happen. Then, so when the temperature is more than 27 degrees Celsius, less than 35 degrees Celsius, that is the perfect temperature for the pearl cultivation. Then, and moreover, the water must be shallow. So here the water is also shallow. It is not deeper. So one of the finest pearl cultivation used to happen at this point of time in this area. And these dynasties were endowed with these pearls. Then, so they were trading the pearls with the Roman world and so as the Chinese world. So basically in the Roman world, pearl cultivation cannot happen. Okay, Mediterranean Sea temperature is always lower than the 15-16 degrees Celsius. And what about the China? So China don't have the tropical waters then. So they were not also cultivating the pearls. So pearl cultivation can happen in entire Indian coastal line. In fact, in Gulf of Khambat also pearl cultivation happens. So this was one commodity. Another commodity is that this area is heavily forested, endowed with a large number of the elephants. Then, and what was popular from the elephants? Ivory. Okay? So there was a huge demand of the ivory in the Western world. Then, so ivory in the Western world, and then it was all supplied from here. Moreover, agriculturally, it was also a rich area, and moreover, when it comes to the agricultural aspect of this area, so rice cultivation, then cotton cultivation, and so as the sugarcane cultivation. So everything was happening in this area. So there was a huge demand of the commodities which originated from this area. In fact, when it comes to the cotton cultivation, one of the finest quality of the cotton of India is grown in the Madurai. And Madurai cotton is considered as the best cotton in India. Then, so these all was exported to the Western world. So that's why these dynasties were very rich at this point of time. So mention, you right? So पहले कंबाइन में लिखो फिर सेपरेट बाद में लिखेंगे ठीक है सो all the three Sangam dynasties were quite rich and endowed with ENDOWED, endowed with huge natural resources. Then mention. They had very good knowledge. They had very good knowledge of shipbuilding, and developed strong navies. Full stop. They further developed trade contacts. With the Arab, Roman world, and with the Chinese traders. Done. So with the Chinese traders, full stop. Then you mention after it, the major commodity of export included pearls, ivory, pearls, ivory, cotton textile, silk, and agricultural thing, and spices, and spices, and spices. Then full stop. Then mention. So now this is a general introduction. Let's go into the specific classifications. So very first you write, we'll start with the early Cholas. The early Cholas. Right? So I'm writing few stuff on the board, just copy it. ठीक है? So इसमें we start with the initial ruler. So mention, इसको डिक्टेट करने की जरूरत नहीं है, just write it. Initial ruler, so Ilara, and write about him a little bit. He conquered Sri Lanka. He conquered Sri Lanka and ruled in Sri Lanka for 50 years. He conquered Sri Lanka and ruled in Sri Lanka for 50 years. Then most important ruler, right? So most important ruler was Karikala. Then, and the meaning of his name is the man with the charred leg. समझ रहे हो, charred leg? It is said that in one such event of the fight, one of his leg was burnt. ठीक है? So he is considered as the man with the charred leg. You must have seen his or heard his name in the movie which was released very recently, PS1, PS2. Then, so what is the major achievement of the Karikala? He is regarded as the first personality in India who led to the embankment of the Kaveri River, or in other words, in modern words, we call that he was the first builder of a dam on the Kaveri River. Moreover, he brought the slaves from the Sri Lanka, and they were the one who constructed 140-kilometer embankment of the Kaveri River. So you write, mention. चाहो तो नाम का मीनिंग भी लिख लो. The man with charred legs. The man with, I'm writing, just wait 1 minute. With charred, CHARRED, legs. Perhaps he was the first ruler, mention. Perhaps he was the first ruler who did the embankment of Kaveri River. Embankment of Kaveri River. Then 140-kilometer stretch of Kaveri, 140-kilometer stretch of Kaveri River was embanked by the slaves brought from Sri Lanka. Embanked by the slaves brought from Sri Lanka. Then mention. So right, next one, inland capital. Inland capital, Urayur. And then mention, it was a major textile production center. It was a major textile production center. Textile production center. Then Then coastal capital and most important port. So coastal capital and most important port is Kaveripatnam. Kaveripatnam. Other important port. So tell me, what is the old name of the Pondicherry? Puducherry. Very good. Exactly. This is the new name, which came from the old name. Old name is Arikamedu. So right. So this was one of the port of. अच्छा, एक information छूट गया I think. Have you written Gupta ports? नहीं लिखा है ना? लिख लो. एक बार पीछे जाओ नहीं तो मैं भूल जाऊंगा. Important Gupta ports. ठीक है? बस एक टाइटल लिख लो कहीं पे भी किसी भी जगह पे. Important Gupta ports. So Gupta ports, and I'm creating two divisions in it. So west and east. ठीक है? तो दोनों side, eastern coast and western coast, because the expanse of the Gupta Empire was big. So on the western side, just 1 minute, Kalyan, then Chakla, Supara आजकल बॉम्बे में बन गया नाला सुपारा. So and eastern side, Ghantasila and Tamralipti. इसमें एक और इंफॉर्मेशन ऐड करूंगा. ठीक है? ये तो पोर्ट्स हो गया. इन गुप्ता इकोनॉमी जहां लिख रहे थे, we could have mentioned that at that particular place only. So Ghantasila and Tamralipti on the eastern side. ठीक है? Then नोट गुप्ता में कहीं इसी के नीचे नोट लिखो. So just give me 1 minute. इकोनॉमी में लिख सकते हो. If you have a place or any space at the economy, so वहां पे लिख लो कुल्यवाप and द्रोणवाप. कुल्यवाप and द्रोणवाप were the unit of measurement of land. Unit of measurement of land. For unit of measurement of land. हाँ दोनों वाप है. नहीं वाद नहीं है, वाप है. Sorry. It is so this is KU. Kulya. Kulyavap and Dronavap. हाँ unit of measurement of land. ठीक है? Then एंड अगर जो ओरिजिनली कॉन्सेप्ट समझोगे तो ये बनता कैसे था. ठीक है? एक्चुअली every unit has a smallest measures. Then and what was the smallest that or basically the object which is taken for the basic measurement tool. Rice. चावल का एक दाना was the smallest unit, and वो ऐसे करते थे that suppose that they have taken 10-15 something चावल का दाना or that rice pod, and then they are lined 10-15 and then accordingly one unit, then the second unit. So चावल का दाना was taken as a unit, the smallest unit in those times. ठीक है? Yes? ठीक है? बासमती तो वो तो जब देखो स्टैंडर्ड अब वो तो किसी भी वे में हो सकता है, दैट स्टैंडर्ड इज दैट छोटे चावल के दाने के लिए कुल्ले वाप और बड़े वाले के लिए दोण वाप. So now, but nowadays that you know that there is a scam in chawal ka dana also. You don't know that chawal ka dana. So basically, that everything is proclaimed as a basmati. What they do that there is a one chawal. कहीं discussion और जा रहा है, but just सुन लो. There is a one chawal or one rice variety which is called as parimal. ठीक है? Parimal is what happened that it is very thick, ठीक है? And then dense. So, but the size is less. What they do that with the heating and the pressure process, it is going into a tube and then it is elongated and that is sold as a basmati. So ये सबसे बड़ा धोखा है. Basmati, you will have to be a very fine connoisseur of the basmati to understand, and that's your smell. ठीक है? So with the smell only you can recognize basmati, not with the size. ठीक है? So यहाँ पे धोखे वाले चावल यूज नहीं होते थे. So now let's come to the next dynasty. एक और कर लो and then we'll give you the break. So the Cheras. The Cheras. Also known as, लिख लो, also known as Kerala Putras. Kerala Putras. Then, so इसमें first you write initial ruler. Initial ruler Udain Jaral. Udain Jaral. And most important ruler Senguttuvan. Senguttuvan, also known as Red Chera or Good Chera. Also known as Red Chera or Good Chera. Then what is his most important contribution? So when we are going to complete the Pandya, so I'll talk about one famous epic of the Tamil Nadu, that is Silapatikaram. In that I will tell you the story of the Silapatikaram. Then, so there we'll further able to correlate this dynasty. But for the time being, just write his most important contribution. What was that? So he founded or he created a temple in the southern India, which is known as Temple of Kannagi. Then, and who is Kannagi? Kannagi is regarded as the goddess of Chestaiti. What is Chestaiti? Pati Vrata ki Devi. You understand what is Pati Vrata? ठीक है? So ये भी नहीं समझ में आता है. आता है ना? Have you heard about what is the name of that lady historically, mythologically in Hinduism? Savitri. ठीक है? So in northern India, Savitri is the goddess of Chestaiti, and in the southern India, Kannagi. Moreover, on the basis of the role of the Kannagi, he founded one such cult in the southern India, which is known as Pattini cult. So you write, he constructed the famous temple. He constructed the famous temple of Kannagi. Kannagi, in brackets you can mention goddess of Chestaiti. Goddess of Chestaiti. And famous temple of Kannagi, goddess of Chestaiti. Then mention he also founded Pattini cult. He also founded Pattini cult. Then mention their capital. So here capital is, there are not only one capital. It's not inland capital and coastal, but only one, and that is 1G. 1G, also known as Karur. Karur. And they had only one important port. So most important port, that is Musiri. पांड्या भी कर लें, just 3-4 minutes would be there. ठीक है. कल्ट बताओ तुम लोग. I will explain, but then I just want to know how many of you know cult. अब cult पूछोगे तो sect भी पूछना पड़ेगा. What is sect? What is cult? So, and how actually the question that you have asked, it is all related to the evolution of the religion. Okay? So evolution of the religion. So basically, there are many cults which get integrated, and then it leads to the creation of a polytheistic religion. And what is polytheistic religion? Example, Hinduism. So for example, that when we talk about that creation of the Hinduism as a common plural concept, it is the integration and amalgamation of the many cults. So cult is basically the devotion towards a one personal figure, okay, or one individual. So it all starts with the devotion and the worship of one individual or one personified god. But then later on what happens, that when that particular person or divinity, it is personified into a god, it is cult in the beginning, and then he is included into the larger pantheon to make a religion. So for example, that when the people started the bhakti of Lord Shiva, so it was a cult. When the people started the bhakti of the Lord Vishnu, it was a cult. So for example, even in the Lord Shiva and the Lord Vishnu itself, there are many sub-cult also. So for example, one version of the Lord Vishnu, which is worshipped in the Jagannath Puri, is Jagannath cult. Okay? So it is he is the incarnation of the Lord Vishnu, but then his cult is the Jagannath. Then similarly, Lord Shiva's. Okay? So there are many. So Somnath, Nageshwar, okay? Then Rameshwar, then Kedarnath. So these all are the cults which get integrated to make a religion. And which particular optional you have opted for? Physics. Oh. So concepts of physics, H.C. Verma. Okay, it's fair. So you further read about the cult if you have had sociology as an optional. So you must have read about it. Philosophy में भी cult नहीं पढ़ाते हैं. Cult discussion is only done in the sociology. And up to little bit of extent, we do discussion on the cult in the anthropology also. ठीक है? But then बाकी जगह पे cult का discussion नहीं होता है. So for example, चलो since he has asked, कुछ और time बर्बाद करते हैं. So can you tell me some cult figure from the today's time? Yes? Who? I'm not getting. Tej bolo. See, he was a cult, but he's a Nirasa cult. Though his name has Asa, but he has gone into Nirasa. Okay? So he is not right example. Any relevant example who may become a very important figure in the Indian religion in times to come? Abhi ke time pe Sadguru, actually. I would, Sadguru, or there are other gurus also, but the Sadguru is very popular one. So he is a cult figure in the today's time. Okay? Because he has a large followership and very rational followership. Kuch log agree nahi karte, that's all fine, because we are in a democratic setup. And not just democratic, but that's humanity, that we must have the right to agree or disagree with anybody. But then one thing for sure, everybody knows that he is a very popular figure. So he is a cult figure, and maybe the tenets that he is establishing that may lead to the one cult personality and cult religion in the times to come. So let's come back to the last one. पांड्या करके ही ब्रेक दूंगा मैं. So वैसे वर्ड्स काफी मैच हो गए. पांड्या तो करके ही आया था. So the initial Pandya ruler, initial ruler was Mudu Kumudi. Mudu Kumudi. And the most important ruler was Nedunjelian. But लिख लो, and there is a one part of the story I'll tell you after the break. Okay? So related to Nedunjelian only, and in which the connectivity between all the other kingdoms will be maintaining. Then after you write their capital. So what must be the capital of the Pandyas? Madurai. So Madurai was their capital, and important ports were Korkai and Thuthikodi. Korkai and Thuthikodi. Just write one last line about him. So mention. लिखो. Nedunjelian was known for expanding the Pandya kingdom, and for his justice, but in the last leg of his life, he did a grave mistake. Grave, G-R-A-V-E, grave mistake of injustice. Which is central theme of the Tamil epic. Silapathikaram. So you write this epic in the Tamil language. We'll tell you the story after the break. Tamil epic Silapathikaram, written by Ilango Adigal. Then, so take break. So now listen. So this text that we have mentioned on the board, Silapathikaram. So basically, language literature में भी हम बात करते हैं इसकी Silapathikaram में. But then here, there are two epics which were written in those times. One was Silapathikaram and another was the Manimekalai. First of all, who was Ilango Adigal? So Ilango Adigal is said to be it's believed to be the brother of Chera ruler Senguttuvan. Okay? So he was the brother of Chera ruler Senguttuvan, the most important Chera ruler. Now, what is the story in this Silapathikaram? So understand that the characters who are there in the Silapathikaram, Kovalam, Madhavi, Kannagi, and the Pandya king Nedunjelian. Then, so there is one person which I'm writing X, he's a villain, and then Queen. So these are the characters. So as per the story, Kovalam and Madhavi. Madhavi is a dancer and Kovalam is a courtesan. So both are working in the court of the Nedunjelian. Then, moreover, Kovalam's wife is Kannagi. So Kannagi, they got married way back and it was a happy marriage. And then Kannagi, as we have mentioned earlier, that he is a goddess of chastity, meaning that he is so much devoted to the husband. Then Now what happened, that in search of the livelihood, he is in the court of the Nedunjelian. So he's working in the court of Nedunjelian. Now this lady Madhavi, who is the dancer in the Nedunjelian's court, now time and again she has been harassed by this villain. ठीक है? Indecent proposals, then कोई नहीं है तो मुझसे शादी मचा लो, ठीक है? So now, so she is very much harassed by the villain, and every time when she is in some difficult situation, so the hero is Kovalam, who is saving her. Then, and then इतनी बार बेचारे ने बचाया कि खुद नहीं बच पाया, ठीक है? He fell in love with the Madhavi. Then Madhavi also fell in love with the Kovalam. And then they have decided, still, that guy is highly influential, villain, and moreover, he will keep on pestering them. So now, what has happened, that Kovalam has confided this particular thing to the Kannagi, that he has fallen in love with the Madhavi and he want to get married. So then Kannagi, so she is allowing Kovalam to get married, and then she made a proposal that if there is no easier life in the Pandya court, so you come back to our city. Okay? So we will be doing something over here then, and then that will be enough for our livelihood. So now when they are shifting to their parent town, so Kannagi at that point of time, she has given one of her precious anklet, Payal. Okay? So one of her precious anklet, and actually the meaning of the word Silapatikaram is the story of the anklet. Then, so now Kovalam has what he has done, that he has sold that particular anklet. Okay? So to a particular merchant. Now they got enough money. With that money, they are starting their own trade business, whatever that is there in their own parent town. Now the villain has become restless that where they have gone, what they are doing. So he landed up in their towns. Okay? And moreover, he figured out that how they are surviving, because they have sold some sort of jewelry to the merchant. Then now he went to the merchant, and to his surprise, that when he is looking at that particular anklet, the anklet was exactly similar to the queen's anklet. Then, so exactly similar to the queen's anklet. Now there was a spark in his mind, and then what he did, he went back to the kingdom. He stole queen's anklet, one of the queen's anklet. There were two, obviously, pile do hi hoga. So he stole one of the anklet and he framed Kovalam. So he framed Kovalam. Now the king's convoys, they were sent to their parent town and to the merchant, and merchant gave that particular anklet. It was exactly similar to the queen's anklet, and now Kovalam was brought to the kingdom and he was executed without given a trial. Then, so he was killed without given a trial, not even a chance to speak for himself. Then, now at this point of time when this news has reached to the Kannagi, so Kannagi comes up. She has given only one anklet for the selling purpose. Then now she came to the Pandya court with the second anklet, and then she asked to the king that if the queen has one anklet and one anklet with the merchant, so from where this third anklet is coming? Okay, where is this third anklet is coming? And moreover, she asked the relevant questions, and also that he interrogated the Pandya king Nedunjelian. After that, she was not satisfied. They asked for her forgiveness, but then she was in anger, and then what she did, that in front of the entire assembly, she cut her both breasts, threw it into the fire, and she cursed Pandya king Nedunjelian. It is said that the curse of the Kannagi was so powerful that half of the Madurai city was burnt on the same day, and it also led to the death of the Nedunjelian and the queen, and so as the villain. So this is the time when the people who witnessed it, and they wrote the ire of the Kannagi, and that's how Senguttuvan created a temple of Kannagi, and then his brother wrote this entire story. I hope you got it. Okay. So now you're able to correlate a little bit of names then. So we'll have a little bit more discussion, not just Silapadikaram, but the second epic at the time of the language and literature. Okay. So now we are done with the this particular part. Let's move to the next area, and that area is basically, so we have gone to the south. Okay. Now we'll come back to the north. So come to the north. And what was the last topic in the north? Guptas. When they ended 550 AD. Now understand, So when Guptas ended by 550 AD, you remember that land grant which they started to give many of their ministers, and we mentioned some of the names: Yashodharman of the Malwa, Mokhari of the Kannauj, and Maitraka of the Saurashtra. By 550, they became independent kingdom. So Mokhari kingdom in Kannauj and Maitraka in Saurashtra and Yashodharman of the Malwa. So they became independent kingdoms. But then they never became a full-fledged and very strong dynasty. Instead of them, okay, who developed Pushyabhuti? Pushyabhuti dynasty. And this Pushyabhuti dynasty was based in Haryana. Which place? Thaneshwar. How we write Thaneshwar? Thaneshwar. Okay? Pronunciation Thaneshwar, but written as Thaneshwar. Okay? Now, so it was based in Thaneshwar in Haryana, and Prabhakar Vardhan was the founder of this dynasty. Then, so Prabhakar Vardhan, that it was just like one of the feudatory of the Guptas. But then Prabhakar Vardhan also adopted the historical approaches. And what was the historical approach? Matrimonial alliance. So he performed matrimonial alliance with the, out of the three which I mentioned, Mokharis. Okay? Mokharis of Kannauj. So now let me write the name first, Prabhakar Vardhan. And this dynasty is coming to reality in 600 AD. Prabhakar Vardhan had three children, and there is one, so daughter. Daughter was Rajya Shri, and then his eldest son Rajya Vardhan, and his youngest son was Harshvardhan. Then Harshvardhan. So now what he did, that as we mentioned, that he was going for the matrimonial alliance, whereby what he did, that he married Rajyashri to the Mokhari ruler Grahavarman. Then, so Mokhari ruler Grahavarman. Now they have become relatives and their kingdom has expanded. So the kingdom has been combined, Mokharis and Pushyabhutis. Then, so this is the initial thing. Then soon after this marriage has been solemnized, the death of Prabhakar Vardhan happened. And then the eldest son, Rajyavardhan, became the ruler of the Thaneshwar. Then, moreover, this is the time when one of the adversary of the Vardhans and the Mokharis is the ruler of the Bihar and Bengal, and his name is Shashank God. So Shashank God, what he did, that Shashank God wanted to capture Kannauj. Kannauj was the most important city in India at this point of time. It was a big industrial city, and then also on the banks of river Ganga, so automatically it becomes very important. So what he did, that Shashank God attacked on Kannauj and killed Grahavarman. Then killed Grahavarman, and he also kidnapped or basically captured Rajyashri. So Rajyashri was put into the prison. In this scenario, Rajyavardhan went to rescue Rajyashri, but he was also killed by Shashank. Then, now finally, so the throne is passing to Harshvardhan. It is around 604. Then, and so Harshvardhan made a meticulous planning, whereby he knew that Shashank was a formidable enemy. If I go after taking the revenge, so maybe he may play other roles or may play much intelligent strategy. So what he focused only on freeing the sister Rajyashri from the captivity. Then, so now he was successful in releasing sister Rajyashri from the captivity, and then after he started preparation to fight with the Shashank God. And Shashank God was a formidable enemy. It took 14 years of preparation for the Harshvardhan to finally defeat Shashank God. Then, so after the defeat of the Shashank God, Harshvardhan emerged as the most powerful ruler of the central basically northern India. Then, so his regime existed above the Narmada river. So if you just look at, or if you are able to imagine Narmada river, so then basically everything above Narmada river in the Indian subcontinent was under Harshvardhan's control. And then we need to talk about his fight with the South Indian kingdom Chalukya. Then, so mention, you write. So what will be the title? You write Pushyabhuti dynasty. Pushyabhuti dynasties. Then in this you mention, after the demise of Guptas, many small principalities emerged in North and Central India. Full stop. Out of which the most important was the Pushyabhuti dynasty of Thaneshwar in Haryana. Then mention Prabhakar Vardhan was the founder of this dynasty. Around 600 AD. Then you write, following the policy of matrimonial alliance, he married his daughter to Maukhari, ruler of Kannauj. Grahavarman. Then mention, full stop. After the death of Prabhakar Vardhan, his eldest son Rajyavardhan became the next ruler. Then full stop के बाद लिखो Shashank God. It's written on board so you can see his spelling. Shashank God of Bihar, Bengal. Was the formidable enemy of the Vardhans. Formidable. Formidable. Formidable enemy of Vardhans. Full stop. Shashank with the intelligent planning killed Grahavarman, captured Rajyashri, that's the daughter, okay, of the Prabhakar Vardhan, and later also killed Rajyavardhan. Full stop. It led to appointment of Harshvardhan as the ruler. Full stop. Harshvardhan was successful in releasing his sister Rajyashri, from Shashank's captivity. Shashank captivity. Shashank's captivity. Full stop. Then mention. After a long drawn preparation. Full stop. After a long drawn preparation, finally, Harshvardhan. After a long drawn preparation, Harshvardhan finally defeated Shashank God. Shashank God. That's it. Now listen. So this is his consolidation in the north and the eastern part of India. But then Shashank was an ambitious ruler. Harshvardhan. So he was an ambitious ruler and he wanted to spread or further propagate his kingdom, proliferate his kingdom in the southern India. So that's how he crossed the river Narmada to fight with the Chalukya ruler Pulakesin II. But then, for the very first time, Harshvardhan was defeated by Chalukya ruler Pulakesin II. But then after this defeat of the Harshvardhan, a friendship treaty was signed between Harshvardhan and Pulakesin II. And this friendship treaty is mentioned in the famous inscription of the Aihode. How we write Aihode? Aihole. So Aihode inscription. And this Aihode inscription was written by the court poet of the Chalukya. So this question has been asked in the prelims exam way back. So any idea that who was the court poet of the Pulakesin II? Ravi Kirti. Good. And then another part of that question was that in which language this Aihode inscription was written? Sanskrit. Okay. So usme option mein they give Kannada also. But then you will have to go with the Sanskrit. Okay? And what was the script of the inscription? ABA. Brahmi. Okay? So it was written in the Brahmi script. So ek bar likho, mention karo. Harshvardhan was an ambitious ruler. Harshvardhan was an ambitious ruler. And he wanted to expand his kingdom. He wanted to expand his kingdom south of river Narmada. South of river Narmada. Full stop. It led to fight with Chalukya ruler. It led to fight with Chalukya ruler Pulakesin II. Pulakesin II. Full stop. Harshvardhan was thoroughly defeated. Harshvardhan was thoroughly defeated in this fight. So Harshvardhan was thoroughly defeated in this fight. Full stop. But it led to a friendship treaty. It led to a friendship treaty between the two rulers. Which is mentioned in the famous Aihole inscription of Karnataka. Aihole inscription of Karnataka. Further you write. Inscription was written by court poet of Chalukya. Court poet of Chalukya, Ravi Kirti, in Sanskrit language. Ravi Kirti in Sanskrit language. Then add karo further. As per the treaty, both the sides, as per the treaty, both the sides promised to each other that they will treat river Narmada as boundary and will not venture into each other's territory. Then, so this is what is the details of this particular part. Now, the third aspect associated with the Harshvardhan is the arrival of the Chinese Buddhist traveler Huensang. Then, so Huensang arrived in Kannauj when the Harshvardhan is the ruler. So now understand that in the Gupta period we mentioned that the book of the Fahayan was important, Fukuoki, in which he has made all the observations. Here also the book of the Huensang, which is CUQ. So how we write Huensang? HIUENTSANG. And name of his book was CUQ. Okay, so CUQ. So in this book he has mentioned his experience at the Harshvardhan's court, and a question was asked from the experience of the Huensang only. In way back in the prelims exam, CSET start hone ke baad hi pucha tha. So what was the question? We'll tell you later, but understand what he has mentioned. So Huensang has clearly written in his book CUQ that there was a very strict provision of the punishment to any kind of crime in the Harshvardhan's court. He has mentioned even for the pettiest of the crime. What is pettiest? Matlab chota se chota. Okay? So even for the pettiest of the crime, severe punishment was there, and that was cutting the hands of the thieves. Then, so he has mentioned. Then further he adds in his book, despite the strict provision of the punishment, the streets of the Kannauj were not free from the robbers. Then, so this is what he has mentioned. Why he said so? Because he himself witnessed that particular incident. So whenever you get time, so ek baar type karna Huensang in Google and go to the image. You just look at that, how he's looking. So a very different depiction of the Huensang is there, that he's carrying so much of paraphernalia with him. And so looking at him, I felt that it must have been he was the inventor of the cargo pants. Then, so because there were so many pockets which are visible in his pant. Then, and not only the pant, but also that his body is fully stuffed with the many pockets, and in each of the pockets he is carrying something. In fact, he is depicted like that. On the top of his head there is a hat, and hat is like this way. Okay? So it seems like a paper. He's carrying some sort of paper over here. Upar se nikala, likh ke de diya. Okay? So so now, so he's fully obviously this kind of person will be very enticing to the robbers. Then, so robbers looted him on the streets of the Kannauj. And not only he was looted, but as per the details, he was only left on the underpants. Okay? So now, so you know, so this is a funny, and he himself has mentioned about it all, that I was left on the underpants. Then, and then he says that he met to appeal to the Harshvardhan about this particular robbery. So when he made an appeal to the Harshvardhan, he has gone to his court. So people looking at his attire, and obviously his physical features are different from the Indian physical features. Obviously the Chinese structures are different, but he was looking like a sumo. So everyone was laughing at him then. And then Harshvardhan was also very amused to see this personality. But then Harshvardhan asked a question, that you have been robbed of all your stuff. Okay? Nothing is left. Still you seem to be very calm and composed. Then, so then he started his conversation and effect of the Buddhism. So that's how slowly this conversation between the two people started to increase, and Harshvardhan was completely under the grip of the Huensang. Then, so Harshvardhan originally was the devotee of the Lord Shiva and the sun. Then, and under the influence of the Huensang, he also accepted Mahayana Buddhism. But understand one thing, those were not the time when people are accepting other faith, so they are discarding their previous faith. Those were the time that people were carrying all the faiths together. So Harshvardhan continued his worship of the Lord Shiva and the sun, but he also became a Mahayana Buddhist. Then, and moreover, under the influence of the Huensang, he has convened 2 councils then to promote Buddhism. And these councils, one was at the Kannauj and second was at the Prayag. So we'll tell you details about it, but first you mention, right? So during the tenure of Harshvardhan, famous Chinese Buddhist traveler Huensang visited Kannauj. Then mention, he wrote his experience of Harshvardhan's court in his book nCqVFIiC0qQPXgOUOslP. In his book, he wrote his experience of Harshvardhan's court in his book nCqVFIiC0qQPXgOUOslP. In his book nCqVFIiC0qQP. बोर्ड पे लिखा है, you can see. Then mention further, as per Huensang, there was a very strict provision of punishment even for the pettiest of the crime. As per Huensang, there was very strict provision of punishment even for the pettiest of the crime. He further adds, despite the punishment provision, streets of Kannauj were not free from the robbers. Then mention, not free from the robbers, full stop. He himself was completely robbed. In Kannauj. So now listen. So as we mentioned that that Harshvardhan is accepting the Mahayana Buddhism, okay? But he continued his practice of worship of the Lord Shiva and the sun. Now, under the influence of the Huensang, he has convened 2 religious councils, and these councils, one is at the Prayag, another is the Kannauj. So Kannauj was the first one, and second one was the Prayag. So it is said that in Kannauj assembly, then, so when the assembly started, religious conference started, so Huensang started giving lectures on the Mahayana Buddhism, and it is regarded as a big milestone for the Mahayana Buddhism. Then after the conference was over, so Harshvardhan organized a charity event. So majority of the people who participated in the conference, they all were given some return gift or some sort of charity thing happened. Now, second, the announcement was made that next year the second council or second conference will be held at the Prayag. So huge preparations were made for the Prayag assembly, and then once again Huensang started lecture on the Mahayana Buddhism in the second assembly. But then this assembly continued for a very longer duration. Then, and it is said that when the assembly has reached more than 70 days, so there were people who got frustrated, and some of the people, they put tent on fire. Then, so why they put tent on fire? Because they all questioned that we were here just to get the gift, not to listen to the lecture for 70 days. Then Harshvardhan realized that the people can be taught, people can be preached when their stomachs are filled, then when they are economically better. Then so nobody will take the wise words when there is nothing in their home. So moved by this scenario, it is said, and Huensang has written in Siyuki that Harshvardhan donated all his personal wealth. Royal nahi, welfare wala alag hai, but his own personal wealth, and from this point onwards he started to rule like a monk. So he's not having his personal wealth, welfare ke liye jo bhi hai, that he's continuing, then but in his own life he became very, very much like a monk. Then after this incident, what has happened, that the time came when Huensang is taking the permission of the Harshvardhan to return back to his king, then and to tell about the Harshvardhan. So Harshvardhan sent lavish gift to the Song ruler of the China, okay? Song dynasty, Tsong. So that was ruling in the China. So now, impressed by the Harshvardhan's gift, then Song dynasty ruler, he decided that he will be sending a return gift to Harshvardhan. And now the another Chinese Buddhist traveler is coming to India. Who is he? So Itsing or Ising. Okay? So Ising. So now Ising arrived in Kannauj. But then Ising is said to be very unfortunate guy. When he arrived in Kannauj with all the lavish gift to meet Harshvardhan and tell him about the Song ruler, so the day he landed, he heard the news that Harshvardhan is no more. Then he was very sad. He was very sad. He stayed in India for a while, not for long duration, but then he was desperate to break this news to his ruler that Harshvardhan is no more. So he started his journey back to the China. That though he was for longer duration, he wanted to explore many of the places, but he was desperate to tell the news. When he landed in China, so the day he found that his own ruler was dead. So what it seems, that he was a panauti. Likho. So where's the last line that you heard in? Robbed in the street of Kannauj. Paragraph change karo. Under the influence of Huensang, Harshvardhan accepted Mahayana Buddhism. Harshvardhan accepted Mahayana Buddhism. But he continued his worship of Lord Shiva and the sun. Lord Shiva and the sun. Now listen just 1 minute. This question must have been posed a little earlier itself. So the question is that how did Harshvardhan understood Chinese language? Then, so this question you could have asked that right from the inception of the history, there are many travelers. Then Fahiyan ke time pe hi pooch lete that how Chandragupta II understood the Chinese language. Or basically, uske pehle bhi there are a number of the travelers, even in the Maurya time also, that he has contact with the Egyptian rulers, Syrian ruler. So how they are, what is the mode of communication between the two? So now listen, one of the earliest industry in the world or profession in the world is the multilingualism. Okay? There existed the community of the people whose only job is to learn the different languages of the world, and these people were Sogdians. Then, so Sogdians. So this is a new information which you need to know. And who were Sogdians? Now understand. Very often we talk about the Central Asia. Then very often we talk about the Central Asia. In fact, in the world scenario also, even the contemporary times also, even in the Vedic times also, we mentioned Central Asia. And even from the ancient time also, Central Asia was important. Why Central Asia is important? Central Asia is considered very closer to the Pamir Knot. and Pamir Knot is considered as the roof of the world. So it is easy for the Central Asian to descend in the different direction. Their movement, their geography, their topography favors their movement into any direction. So Sogdians developed this particular trait to learn all the languages. In fact, there used to be the Patsalas, or you can say that educational centers in the Central Asia, whereby the learning of all the languages were happening. So people from that, they were learning the Chinese, they were learning the Roman, they were learning the Indian languages, everything. So actually in those times, everybody preferred to go to the Sogdians, learn the language of that area, and then they will coming to India. So it is onus was not on the Harshvardhan to understand the language of the Hwensang, but onus was on the Hwensang to learn the Indian language and then come to India. I hope you got it. Then, so it is said that history would not have been possible without the Sogdians, then, because they were the first intercommunicators of the world which existed in the Central Asia. I hope you got it. Then, so now आगे लिखो, mention करो. So yes, Lord Shiva and the sun. Then mention influenced by Hwensang. Influenced by Hwensang, Harshvardhan convened two religious conference, one at Kannauj and second at Prayag. Then mention in both the conference, Hwensang gave elaborate lectures on Mahayana Buddhism. Then mention it is regarded as a big shot, S-H-O-T, a big shot in the arm of Mahayana Buddhism. Big shot in the arm, A-R-M, in the arm of Mahayana Buddhism. Then you write एक last line लिखो. Around 647 AD, another Chinese Buddhist traveler, Itzing visited Kannauj to meet Harshvardhan. But Harshvardhan was dead by this time. Then, so what is the time? 4. ठीक है? So, कल है class? नहीं. So next week, whenever the class is there, we'll be starting with the Chalukya and Pallavas. So ancient खत्म हो जाएगा next class में, hopefully. ठीक है? And उसके बाद then we'll start with the medieval. ठीक है? चलो. Thank you.